No one's blown up wounds. No one's blown up wounds. No one's blown up wounds.
What a brilliant machine.
Some movies are so expensive to make that no single person or group can be responsible for the whole thing, not even after pouring their heart and soul into the process. Even giants like Stanley Kubrick rely on banks and insurance policies to build their creations. Unfortunately, these unseen actors can influence the content of the finished film. This is why we tend to get mixed messages in movies, because there are multiple forces at play. Each of them tends to leave a trail, so all we need to do is follow the smoke and mirrors. It's almost impossible to distinguish a writer's contribution from the director's contribution from the producers or the bankers. All we can do is report what we see and compare it with the real world in order to judge the fidelity of a movie's message. And so we identify with the main character, and Jack Harper here is a character we can all identify with. And why wouldn't we? He gets to work with his hands, he's got access to all the best technology, and well, just look at this house. Jack lives above the clouds, in a penthouse no different from any of these. If these came with weapons of mass destruction, that is. The word apartment literally means apart from, and that's how we live, even though we're far from alone. The point of this domestic setting is to show us that Jack and his partner want for absolutely nothing. He lives in a paradise, but it's a glass and steel paradise, which is about as good as it gets in modern films. Even this female character is completely devoted to him, yet despite all this luxury, they are surrounded by scarcity and death. They believe they're serving the rest of humanity through their actions, which seem perfectly innocent. He believes he's doing the right thing just by going to work every day. He believes that big fucking thing up in the sky is nothing to worry about, and he's no different from any of us. Jack takes his orders from a machine, and he takes them in confidence that the machine is merely relaying its half of the conversation and not creating it. Actually, Jack never interacts directly with the main machine, the SAL 9000, until the end of the movie. He only handles its balls. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, this machine has balls. It was invented by Joseph Kosinski, a genius director born with the spirit of Stanley Kubrick and Ridley Scott. He wrote, directed, and cast the biggest movie star in the world into Oblivion. He carved Kubrick's monolith into a talking one-eyed pyramid. He gave the machine a voice, a face, and some pretty big balls too. Best of all, he showed us how dangerous reflections can be. The background story tells us that aliens attacked Earth, blew up the moon, and used clones of Tom Cruise like G.I. Joe toys to take over the planet. Then the machine begins sucking up all the water on Earth, which is fairly ironic since water is basically kryptonite as far as your typical machine is concerned. It's now 60 years later, and Jack is kidnapped by the so-called aliens who explain to him that during the seemingly benign act of supporting balls, he is enabling acts of oppression against his fellow human being.
We're humans.
Upon learning this to be true, Jack is devastated, as any one of us would be. Just prior to this, he risked his life to save people who appeared to be human, even though he was viewing them through glass. Once we are able to see each other clearly, we act immediately and carelessly towards the common good.
Why did you do that? Anyone would have.
And that's the truth. Countless acts of humanity are performed every day all over the world, but we never hear about them because we get all our information through a machine. It seems as though some of us can see past them just fine. And what do we see? The moon of Earth. What color is it? Is it white or gray? Sounds like a simple enough question, so which is it? According to NASA, the surface of the moon is very similar to the color of tarmac or asphalt. If you believe in colors, that is. Colors only exist within the human eye or retinal apparatus or brain, which means that all colors are actually illusions. Our friends at Vsauce made an excellent video on this subject, and there's a link in the description. Civilization has come to rely on colors, but are they really necessary? Video editors know that the best way to record footage is to desaturate the original image, because this brings out the most detail possible. During post-production, the editor carefully adds colors back in to make the image vibrant and appealing without overwhelming the fine details. The result is a creation, a construction, an illusion, no different from any other image ever reproduced by human eyes. Most of the animal kingdom relies on black and white vision for this very reason. We use colors as decorations and signals, and above all as warnings. And there's one color which stands above all others when it comes to alarm. That color is red. She is the one who is in contact with the higher power. Her intuition ought to tell her something is wrong, and it often does. She openly announces that she doesn't want to know the truth about her world, even if it is broken. It's still hers, and she wants to keep it just the way it is. She's so terrified of change that she's willing to fight just to keep things the way they are. Victoria only had one spirit inside her magic lamp, and it wasn't even real. We have millions of channels to choose from, and each one is like a ray of colored light, which is nice to look at all by itself, yet pale compared to the brilliance of the big picture. Where there's light, we can expect to find heat, but machines have neither of these qualities unless we've installed them. Machines are not self-illuminated like the rest of us. Machines can either reflect light, or they can reproduce artificial light, depending on what we tell them to do. The weird thing about the moon is, it does both, and it does so without anyone telling it to. All it does is reflect sunlight, yet somehow or other, the mere act of reflecting sunlight creates a form of artificial light that falls on Earth and makes people crazy. Why is this all so important? Because we're all alive, but there are elements of our environment that are not. Once we can recognize the difference between us and them, we'll be able to truly take responsibility for ourselves and our future. Jack Harper, or Tech-49 as he's referred to by the machine, had what's called a spiritual awakening over the course of this movie. Put quite simply in the words of William James, the father of modern psychology, Jack rather spontaneously acquired a new way of seeing the world. Of course, the world doesn't change overnight, but the way our character views the world does, and that means that real change is soon to follow. And how does our hero acquire this new sense of clarity? The way all heroes do, by surviving a series of hardships that result in him coming face to face with himself, both metaphorically and in this case, literally. In this fantastic film, Kosinski portrays the phenomenon of self-reflection brilliantly. Self-reflection is, after all, what separates us from the animals, is it not? Reflecting upon thoughts about past or future events is one thing, but manipulating the reflection to our own advantage is something else altogether. Remember this famous scene from 2001: Space Odyssey? That's what's happening here. Moonwatcher is reflecting upon his enemies, the weight of the bone, the application of gravity with violent intent, and the end result of these actions. Vika reflects upon herself constantly. She never has a hair out of place. She couldn't imagine breaking a rule, and whatever instinctive attraction she has for Tech-49 is intensified beyond reason by the one and only photograph in her entire world. She reflects constantly, and yet she sees nothing. Rather than looking at himself, Jack observes the world around him, and these sunglasses offer evidence of Kosinski's genius. Remember, Oblivion was written and directed by the same fellow, and the whole process took him 8 years and $120 million. Believe me when I tell you, even the smallest detail has significance. What are the odds of Tom Cruise finding his Top Gun glasses in a post-apocalyptic Manhattan? What are the odds of him not putting them on and smoldering right through the mirror and into the camera? Jack Harper is different from every other character Cruise has ever portrayed in this way, and these sunglasses prove it. He likes the way they look. He likes the way they look when he sees them, so he puts them on a shelf, not on his face. The idea of manipulating his own reflection never occurs to him the way it would to someone like you or me or Moonwatcher. Those of us who are forced to fight or work for everything we need are always seeking an advantage over each other, and no one could blame us. Jack Harper is above all that. His luxurious lifestyle is shielding him from the scarcity that plagues everyone else, portrayed here by the machine stealing all of Earth's water. We give it fancy names like economics or supply and demand, but what we're really describing is scarcity, and scarcity is what powers the machine we call civilization.
Mars forever!
Tech-49 does indeed represent the best of us, and his sacrifice at the end of the movie was made without even the slightest bit of regret that he was ending his life. Our character doesn't even realize he's immortal because his memory has been tampered with. Obviously, Jack wants to live and die in the valley near the lake with the fish and the girl, but he knows that without his sacrifice, there will be no lake and there will be no fish for the girl and the babies to talk to. It's a terribly painful and sobering decision, but it's an easy choice to make, and I'll wager that every one of you would have done the same thing in this situation. I like to believe that we're all Jack Harper. At least we would be if we had his bowls. Thanks for watching. We hope you've enjoyed our video. Please let us know in the comments below and subscribe to get new videos as soon as they're released. Until next time, please take care of each other and remember, there's no such thing as a natural satellite.